Welcome back to part 2 of our 6-day Disney World trip recap. If you haven't heard part 1, go back and listen to that for our arrival day and a day in Hollywood Studios using Standby Skipper. But for today, we're going to pick up exactly where we left off on a day fully revolving around the fireworks and Magic Kingdom, and then a day spent in Animal Kingdom, ending in Magic Kingdom again. Now, I want to mention at the end of last week's episode, I said that we were going to be chatting about Halloween today, but unfortunately, life has lifed, and this will be coming next week. And I want to give the same disclaimer as I did in the last episode, because I think it really matters that this is not an itinerary to copy. It's pretty dense. It's very niche specific to my job and my family, with kind of random tangents and circumstances. And I know that a lot of the decisions that I made only really make sense like in certain context. I'm also going to be telling you a lot of things because I don't know what piece is going to be useful to you. I generally don't know what you don't know, which is why I'm going to kind of give you a play-by-play instead of editing it down, honestly. So this part of the trip has a few little nuggets that I want you to pay attention to. One of them is the 2-hour rule, which is a piece of Lightning Lane kind of like logistic that I think more people should know. And definitely because I used it a ton on this trip specifically. And yes, there are a couple things where I'm going to be pulling the like full review coming card, including like Beak and Barrel and the Grand Floridian Villas. But one of the things that I thought was going to be a full episode was Bluey's Wild World and Animal Kingdom, because this has been asked about a lot. But I was actually chatting about it yesterday on a live planning call with my members, and I feel like it doesn't need its own episode. So I'm going to go deep into that of everything you need to know about Bluey's Wild World in case you're debating or thinking about timing and logistics on your Animal Kingdom day. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the Laid Back Magic Way podcast. I'm your host, Dana Stanley, creator of Laid Back Magic. As a mom of 3, I know how tough it can be to find time to plan a Disney World trip that doesn't leave you feeling stressed or overwhelmed. That's why I'm here, to help moms like you create Disney vacations that feel even better than they look on paper. Here, we're not chasing perfection, but creating our next favorite memories. So whether you're brand new to Disney or looking to go deeper into the details, this podcast is your go-to for simple tips, mindset shifts, real-life trip recaps, and expert insights to make your trip magical and manageable. New episodes drop every Monday, so be sure to subscribe so you never miss a moment. Okay, let's dive in. The next day was kind of all about the fireworks. I planned my whole day around it. So I wanted to sleep in and not have anywhere to go so that crew would definitely be able to lay down and take a nap in the room so that he could hang. Because the fireworks started at 10, which is very late for us. So the plan for the day was to have a slow morning, hit the pool, while I took Sailor to afternoon tea at the Garden View Lounge over at Grand Floridian, which again is getting a full review because there's a lot of things to know if you're thinking about going or especially thinking about taking a kid with you. So I'm just going to leave that there for now. But it was a nice, easy morning. I was thanking my past self for leaving this morning open, which was very much on purpose. It just kind of felt lucky because we really needed just a break. And crew did take a nap. I think all of that pool time really wore him out. So, because I was nervous that he was going to just like fight a nap, but we were able to get him to take a nap while we were all in the same room. The girls watched a little bit of TV on their iPads, and I actually took a nap. I just rolled over and fell asleep kind of by accident, which was very, very needed. And I felt like $1,000,000 when I woke up. So our only plan really for the evening was getting into Magic Kingdom, having like a light dinner, We ended up getting Pecos Bills, which was in the plan, because I was not going to book any lightning lanes for this day at all. But my 6-year-old mentioned right before the trip that she really wanted to try Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which surprised me a little bit. So I ended up buying multipass for the evening, which is not monetarily very smart with your money. I booked Tiana's and Buzz Lightyear, and then I ended up having Standby Skipper grab Winnie the Pooh because I didn't know like what we were going to want to ride. And I want to explain the timing a little bit when it comes to getting from your DVC villa at Grand Floridian to Magic Kingdom. So we literally walked out of our door at 5:23. We were on the monorail by 5:35, and we scanned into Magic Kingdom at 5:44. So like barely 20 minutes from room to scanning into Magic Kingdom. It was very convenient. And then almost right away, like I was walking down Main Street, Standby Skipper had grabbed Winnie the Pooh for us. So we decided to just head right to Winnie the Pooh. We scanned in at 6:15, and it was fun getting there because we actually were able to walk through the castle, and we were looking at all the tiles. I ended up actually taking pictures of some of the mosaics for like color scheme inspiration. And it was nice getting to like start off the night riding Winnie the Pooh together. So from there, we headed to Frontierland for Tiana's, strictly just for Sailor. She rode it with her dad. Me and Story did not get on because Story has been on it and did not like it. She did not want to get on it again. And Sailor had the pick of who she wanted to ride it with. And she said, well, because Story rode her first time with Mom, I'll ride it for the first time with Dad, which was very sweet of her. So we actually went into the gift shop there, and her pin of the day was a Tiana's pin to kind of mark the occasion. And from there, we went straight to Tomorrowland because it was approaching that check-in time for our dessert party. So we had our Buzz Lightyear Lightning Lane. This was the first time we were on it since the new update. They kind of like refurbished the ride. So much better and more fun. I feel like the kids could have gone on it like 10 times in a row. We all loved it so much. And we ended up checking in and getting our wristbands at like 8:10. So just a reminder, I do think this is one of the situations where the earlier you check in, the better. This was not a busy dessert party night, which was a great kind of relief from the last 3 or 4 parties that we've been to, especially during like party season when you have the Halloween and Christmas parties. The dessert parties on fireworks nights feel pretty crowded and intense to me. This was very relaxed and nice. So we were one of the first people to get there. None of the desserts were picked through. There was no lines. I got my champagne, which made me very happy. I was very, very pleased with the desserts this time, which have been updated since the last time we did a dessert party. And that's why it's getting a full review coming on its own episode. As we were having our desserts and winding down, it was approaching the parade time at 9 o'clock. So the Starlight Parade was at 9, fireworks were at 10, and then the next Starlight Parade was at 11. So we actually headed down to the viewing area for the fireworks right at 9. Almost an hour of enjoying desserts and our drinks. The kids were coloring. We used the Tomorrowland Terrace bathroom, went down to the viewing area, but we still had an hour before the actual fireworks. But the parade was about to start. And I didn't really have a set plan of how we were going to watch the Starlight Parade because I wanted to just see what would happen if you kind of didn't have a plan when you had the pre-fireworks dessert party like we had, because that means you're having dessert first and then you're watching the fireworks. And I will say it is not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to watch the 9 o'clock parade with a pre-dessert party. So genuinely, the easiest thing to do without it being chaotic for you would be if you have a pre-dessert party to watch the 11 p.m. parade, which I will say we pretty much could have done. We didn't realize that we were going to end up staying in Magic Kingdom so late. But after the fireworks, we were kind of like all vibing, weren't really in a rush to get back to the quote buses because we were staying at Grand Floridian. We knew that we could walk or take the boat or take the monorail. It just wasn't as much of a rush to beat the crowds versus like nights when we're staying at the boardwalk and I'm worried about the bus or the minivan. Like I just felt a lot more relaxed about leaving because we were at the Grand Floridian. Put yourself in my shoes back the night of. It's 9:00. We have an hour until fireworks, but the parade is starting. The route that it did this night was the reverse of the parade that's during the day. So it came up Main Street and ended in Frontierland, which means where we were, the parade was going to be in front of us in maybe like 5 minutes. So we parked the stroller and left it at the Plaza Garden and kind of just held Crusoe and grabbed the girls' hands, which I would say is borderline unsafe in like fireworks crowds and isn't something I would recommend. But they're old enough and they've done it before where we were like, do not let go of us. And we were holding the 2-year-old. And we kind of ventured out into the parade/firework crowd. And it was pretty chaotic because there was no space along Main Street near the Plaza Garden to watch the parade well, like with like a front row seat. And the cast members do not want you stopping. So they're just kind of moving you along. Move, move, move. Like you're either under a rope with a spot or you got to keep moving. So we were almost like headed back to Adventureland before Colton was like, abort. Like, what are you doing? Because I was just like kind of walking like, oh, we'll figure it out. I thought maybe we would find a spot closer to Frontierland. That was kind of like my thinking is like, let's just keep walking until we find a spot. And looking back again, the easiest thing to do would have been keep eating desserts and chilling and completely ignore the 9 p.m. parade, watch the fireworks at 10, hang out for a little bit, and then get a spot with a much less crowded 11 p.m. parade. I know that's like super late. The alternative I think I would have done is do the reverse of like watch the 9 p.m. parade, but then do an after fireworks dessert party. So you're also staying out late. I know that's not like the best answer or like a hack. I do think I could have gone over to Frontierland and watched it from there. But even doing that on paper even sounds kind of chaotic to be like going back and forth at nighttime with kids and strollers. I think you could do it if you're like an adults only type situation. But all of that being said, what ended up happening while we were kind of aborting the situation and going back to the Plaza Garden is like this angel of a family. I think it was like maybe the grandfather at first kind of grabbed us and was like, here, like come in our spot. So they were at like the end of the tied off rope section. And we just kind of tucked under the rope next to him and thanked him, obviously. And we're like trying to get behind them so that we weren't blocking their view. And the mom pushed my kids up with her daughter, who was like right on the curb with her grandma. I think she was dressed as Tiana, super adorable. And we had a front row seat. And we kept thanking them and apologizing and trying to like not be in the way. But the mom had said that they had seen the show dozens of times and was happy to do it. And even though it wasn't from like a cast member or anything like that, that was just kind of like one of the little Disney magic things that can happen of just somebody being nice. Just a reminder that being nice at Disney World when you see a family struggling, which was us in that moment, goes a long way. So we had a front row seat. We sat as, as low as we could so that we weren't blocking anyone. And it was a magical show. I have very fond memories of the electric parade in Disneyland. That's what I grew up watching. I do wish I had more of the original soundtrack, like mixed in. I heard it right at the end for maybe like 30 seconds, but I could just listen to the original soundtrack for the whole thing. But my kids really, really liked it. And it's fun seeing, obviously my toddler is still just a little boy. And I guess she was 5 at the time. My 5-year-old still sees things as magical. But it's really nice getting to see my 10-year-old. Like I have a video of her looking up and watching it with just kind of that little kid awe. And they had never seen any type of nighttime parade before. So it was just really special. And I know that mom will probably never hear this episode, but if it sounds like her, she remembers that. Thank you for giving us a front row seat. Today's episode is sponsored by A Mouse and a Beach travel company, and there was something about what the owners, Dave and Mary Price, decided to do differently that really stood out to me. You may have already known that they help families plan Disney vacations, worldwide cruises, all-inclusives, all kinds of adventurous travel. But what I thought was really cool is what happens after the trip. So when clients return home, A Mouse and a Beach makes a charitable donation in honor of that family's vacation. The travelers actually get to help choose where that donation goes, which is really cool. They can select one of the 3 main charities or decide to designate it to their advisor's selected organization. I love that because so much of travel is about creating memories and connecting with the people we love. And this is just one small way that those vacations end up making an impact beyond the family taking the actual trip. And it's without any additional cost to your family. So wherever you find yourself wanting to go next, A Mouse and a Beach will partner with you from dreaming to booking, preparing to packing, all the way through traveling and deciding where to give back. Their advisors are with you the whole way. You can learn more about A Mouse and a Beach and the organizations they support through the link in the show notes. By the time we headed back to the Plaza Garden after the parade, it was maybe 9:25, and we just busted out our glow sticks and had, Crusoe distribute them to all the kids in our area. That's my favorite part of the dessert party, is being able to just hang out in like a gated area where you're not worried about your kid running off or getting lost. I have my stroller nearby. It's just such a much more relaxing experience than watching on Main Street. And you know that we all love Happily Ever After, and there was no lightning, and everything worked out because it wasn't canceled, which I was really stressed about. And that's why we were kind of like in, a good mood when everything wrapped up. So we weren't really in a rush to go back to the room, like I said. We ended up hanging back a little bit just to let people disperse before heading back over to Tomorrowland. I had secretly had Standby Skipper grab a lightning lane for Colton for Space Mountain. I knew that he was going to be happy to be able to ride that. So we just went over to the Space Mountain area. We used the restroom. He got on Space Mountain. And by the time he got off, we were just shopping in the gift shop where we, surprise, surprise, bought some more pins. So by the time we were leaving the park and actually walking down Main Street, people were lining up for the second Starlight parade that was happening at 11 o'clock. So I actually have a picture of me and my daughter on Main Street. It was 10:56. So we could have easily just had stayed, 20 more minutes and watched the parade. We had already seen it by that point. But I think if I could go back and do the night over, knowing what I know now, that would have been my plan, to just watch towards the end of Main Street, because that's where the parade starts. So you're seeing it right at 11:01. And it's not as crowded because you don't have that beautiful castle view in the background. People tend to not line up as far back, and you get out the quickest. So actually, I'm wondering why we didn't just watch it again, to be honest, but it was getting pretty late. So we decided to take the boat back to Grand Floridian, which was definitely the way to go because the monorail line was literally insane. We were on the boat by 11:20, so we had to wait for the boat a little bit, maybe like 10, 15 minutes. And we were at the Grand Floridian and like getting off the boat at, maybe 5 minutes later. So we were back at our room fairly quickly. It was like a nice, enjoyable boat ride and overall just like a good way to close out the night. So after having breakfast again at Gasparilla Island Grill, because my daughter was obsessed with the acai bowls, we hopped on a bus from Grand Floridian to Animal Kingdom. We got lucky with the timing once again. And we didn't get to the park until a little after 10. I was not doing a rushed Animal Kingdom day. We had a few things that we wanted to do, but I didn't book any lightning lanes. This was really kind of like an in and out, or so I thought, kind of day before we hopped into Magic Kingdom. So if you listen to like our pre-trip report and how I sketched things out, I was strategic with this because I wanted to get a lightning lane for Big Thunder Mountain. I wanted a guaranteed lightning lane. I didn't want to have to stress about it. So that's why I'm doing it kind of on like a second Magic Kingdom evening, because I knew I'd have a better chance of getting a lightning lane towards the end of the trip. So I had 3 pre-booked lightning lanes waiting for us in Magic Kingdom for later in the day, kind of flanking a dining reservation at Beacon Barrel at 4:40. But what I did pre-book in Animal Kingdom was a single pass for Flight of Passage, because those are completely independent of multi-pass. You can book 2 a day. It doesn't matter in what parks they are and which one you go first and all of that. So I had Flight of Passage pre-booked and that was it. We're also annual pass holders, so having a park hopper on this trip didn't feel like an added expense for us. So just something to keep in mind, that it's not necessary to be park hopping as much as we did on this trip, but staying at the Grand Floridian and having annual passes, it made sense to hop to Magic Kingdom more than we normally would. And one of the really cool things about Lightning Lane Multipass is you don't need to pre-book your lightning lanes in the first park that you're going to if you're hopping. It will follow you, but it doesn't mean that because I went to Animal Kingdom first, I had to pre-book lightning lanes in Animal Kingdom. Now, that isn't to say that it isn't, monetarily the smartest in some situations, because you're not able to start booking other rides until you scan into them. So if I'm park hopping to Magic Kingdom and my first lightning lane isn't until 4, by the time I scan in, a lot of day of lightning lanes are going to be gone versus if I had started scanning in Animal Kingdom at 9 a.m. I went over this in so much detail actually yesterday on our member live planning call. So if you've been looking for help with lightning lane strategy and just getting your day to flow more smoothly, click the link in the episode caption and remember to use the word podcast. Another thing that I chatted about a lot yesterday, which helped me decide that it doesn't need its own episode, is just Bluey's Wild World. That was our focus for the day. So this is a new experience that opened this year, and it got a lot of buzz, which makes sense because there's a lot of kids that love Bluey, including our family. And if you didn't already know, there is actually like a little train ride to a different location, a different section of the park called Conservation Station. I would call it kind of like a hybrid between an experience and a show. It's not a traditional meet and greet where you stand in line and go take a picture with Bluey and Bingo. And it runs continuously. So there aren't certain show times and then you get on the train and you're in a group of people. It doesn't work like that. It's just a continuous show from 8:30 to 3:45, and you use the train, which is also continuously running, to get there. I do think it's best to put this towards the front of your day in the morning before it gets hot and crowded. The hours, like it doesn't run all day. So for us, we got on the train to Conservation Station by 10:34 and we were off the train by 10:44. So a 10-minute train ride. And we did not deviate or look at anything or do anything. I don't want to say that we rushed. We did bring our stroller with us, which I'm glad that we did. You don't have to bring your stroller. You can park it at the train station, get on the train. If I had older kids, I would certainly do that and just bring my bag. But because it's kind of a walk, I'd say it's like a 5-minute walk from when you get off the train to the actual Bluey and Bingo experience. And our Zoe twin double stroller is, easy to fold up, which yours should be as well when you're dealing with all the buses and things. So we just brought it with us. So when you arrive, you'll park your stroller, you'll go inside an air-conditioned building, and you are held in groups. So it's a line, but it's not like a typical narrow standby line. It's just like a roped off area, I would say. And you are in the room that the experience is happening, but you are kind of haphazardly separated from the experience while you wait. So when we got there, there was already a show going on. So you can kind of see it. You can definitely hear it. And there is kind of like, I would say like a half wall of like faux rocks to your left. And they kind of put like Home Depot potted plants on top because I think they realized that they needed to hide it a little bit better once they opened. It is a little odd the way that it's set up. I wish that you were just kind of in a different room to wait, or I wish they held you maybe a little bit further back while you waited so that you can't hear it because you'll, hear the cast members being like, oh my God, here comes Bluey. Oh my God, here comes Bingo. And all the kids are screaming and there's music and there's a lot of activity going on. And it's odd because you have a 2-year-old who is just waiting. So I hope they improve this. I think it's definitely worth kind of talking to your kids beforehand. My kids were not by any means upset. It was more of just like the waiting. So the way the timing worked for us, which I'm sure if you got there earlier, maybe this wouldn't even happen. You would probably just walk in, or maybe you'd catch just a few minutes, but we caught 1.5 shows. So the actual show is 15 minutes. So I want to say that we waited like 25 minutes, which honestly to me felt like a long time. It wasn't absolutely horrible, but as you know, we don't typically wait in line. But I was prepared because I had seen this online. I had my expectations super low to begin with, so it was all fine. Once it was our actual turn, you were ushered into the area right next door. And there's a little bit of a stage for the cast members to stand on top of, but it's not like a typical show. It's kind of like a circular area with a line on the carpet. They want all the kids to kind of go to that line with the parents behind them. So it's not one of those things like Turtle Talk with Crush where you're like sitting and it's calm. It is going to be lively. The kids are going to be running around and playing games with Bluey and Bingo once they come in. I want to say there was maybe 5 cast members that are doing different things and, getting the kids to interact. And I wish I had paid attention to how many like quote games there were, but they do, keepy uppy or pretend to be an animal. They did like a limbo game with a limbo stick. That was a little chaotic. But the kids had fun. The kids love it. My 2-year-old really was into it. Then my almost 6-year-old was into it. The 10-year-old, not so much. She was a little old for it, but she was a good sport about it. And at one point, my 2-year-old did fall. And that was just from kids running around, and he's little, and he was pretty upset for a little bit. Just something to keep in mind that it can get a little chaotic. So if your kid is little, I wouldn't feel weird like going with them or walking around with them if you feel like they need it. When we left the show, we spent a little bit of time at the gift shop. My girls were into pins this trip, so we were looking at pins. And then there's also a kangaroo experience, kind of like a guided experience when you first walk out. And we wanted to do it, but it was so hot. So keep in mind, when we were there, it was middle of July. Things are starting to warm up. If it had been cooler, I definitely would have done that. So we headed back to the train. We caught it right when it was pulling up both times going and coming, we had good timing with the train. And by the time we were out and had the kids in the stroller, it was 11:53. So I'm giving the timing very specific because we were there an hour and a half when it wasn't too crowded. We hit the timing perfectly for the train there and back. We did not do the kangaroo experience. We did not look around at all. So if you're planning on doing this, I would give at least 2 hours. It is not a quick in and out experience. That is the biggest thing that you need to know. So I wouldn't really do this unless you had like a diehard Bluey fan and you know that they would love it. And it's worth mentioning that when you are in the park, it's not really obvious that this exists. It's not like something you're going to walk by, really. So the kids wouldn't even know that this is there unless you tell them. Do with that information what you will. On the way out, we stop at Dawa Bar for a much needed cocktail before heading into Pandora World. So we ended up mobile ordering from Saltuli Canteen instead of our maybe plan of Nomad Lounge because the girls really wanted to sit outside and it was just too hot. So when I said, do you still want to eat at Nomad Lounge if you have to eat inside? They said no. So we pivoted to Saltuli Canteen, which ended up being a great home base because we were switching off to ride Flight of Passage. The only people that are tall enough are me, my husband, and my 10-year-old. So we got our lunch. We were sitting inside and much needed air conditioning. And Colton took story first, which was nice because I was able to just sit with the 2 little kids and chill a little bit. And then when we switched off, I just rode by myself. And this takes a while because it's a longer ride as a little bit of a pre-show. And when you have 3 kids that are all different, 3 very different heights, that's how it actually plays out. So yes, we waited in Saltuli for a little bit. We used the bathroom, but then by the time they got out, we were like waiting in the gift shop. So the gift shop is like a good spot to wait for people. That is the one thing about Pandora World is unless you're riding Navi River Journey, which we weren't, there isn't a ton of things and places to do with little kids when it's very hot. If it's not very hot, you can explore and do different things and grab a pretzel. But the gift shop ended up being better for us. We headed back towards the front of the park to see the Zootopia Better Together show. And on the way, we actually grabbed some of the like specialty Bluey treats at Pizzafari. We got the fairy toast and the 2 different slushies because my girls love slushies. And I felt really bad because the girls behind me, I noticed them because they were British, so I heard their accent. And they were kind of complaining that there was no healthy food, like in Disney World or maybe Animal Kingdom in general, because they're at Pizzafari and they're looking at the menu. And then when they were talking to the cast member who was making conversation, I think maybe she had asked about like giraffes or something. And she was like, oh, there's animals? There's real animals? Just imagine I said that in a British accent. And my heart broke because I'm thinking like, there's so much good food in Animal Kingdom, like Saltuli Canteen. You could get, salads, or vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, whatever you want over there, and tons of other places in Animal Kingdom specifically. And she didn't know that there was animals at Animal Kingdom. But I kept my mouth shut and we headed over to Zootopia. We, hydrated. We got the kids out of the stroller. We walked up to the front entrance and it went down. It closed, which I do not think happens. And the cast members didn't really have an ETA of what the malfunction was or what happened, if it was a guest problem or like a ride malfunction. So we killed a little bit of time at the gift shop, again, with the pins. But, it's hot. I know I've said it like a million times, but keep in mind it's very hot. And we waited as long as we could before we called it and said, I guess we're not going to see Zootopia. And I felt bad because the girls had been asking about this all day. From the moment we were going to Animal Kingdom, they were asking. And I was like, yeah, we're going to watch it on the way out. We're going to watch it on the way out. We're going to see it on the way out. We can see that anytime. Don't worry about it. We need to focus on this and this. So that was a bummer. I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't. It was not a full Animal Kingdom day, but we did mostly what we wanted to do before heading over to Magic Kingdom. So we ended up not having enough time to go back to the Grand Floridian to change, which was a downer for Story because she had like a Pirates of the Caribbean t-shirt and ears that she wanted to put on. But it was kind of cutting it close because our Beacon Barrel reservation was on the earlier side at 4:40, which, again, will be getting its own episode. But for the sake of the report, just know that when we got to Magic Kingdom and went to Beacon Barrel, it was really just a snack. And that's how I knew I was going to treat it and planned it that way. And that's what it was. But I want you to pay attention now to this part because this is where that 2-hour rule comes in that I said I wanted more people to remember and use and know about. So our Pirates of the Caribbean Lightning Lane was actually for 3:05. I wanted to ride Pirates and then go to Beacon Barrel, but our Animal Kingdom day took longer than I thought I was going to. Surprise, surprise. But we still rode it after our reservation. So you may be thinking, if you had a Lightning Lane at 3:05, which is an hourly window, 3:05 to 4:05, your reservation was at 4:40, how did you ride it after Beacon Barrel? And that's because you can actually scan into a Lightning Lane up to 2 hours after it ends. So for us, it ended at 4:05, and that means you can scan in until 6:04, just before that 120-minute mark. So we had no problem scanning into Pirates after our reservation. And I'm not kidding when I tell you this. We probably scanned in late to maybe 10 Lightning Lanes on this trip. And we've done it since MultiPass has opened. It has always worked. Now, something to keep in mind is 15 minutes after your window ends, it will disappear from the app. So it's not something that Disney talks about or shares. Some cast members will tell you that you have 15 minutes after your window, but in my experience and what has held to be true is it's actually 120 minutes. Now, the downside to this is you can't book another Lightning Lane until you're scanning into the ride, scanning and booking. But for this night, that didn't really apply because it was later in the day. That wasn't my game plan or strategy to be scanning super early and getting something. The highlight was Big Thunder Mountain. So we scanned into Pirates around 5:30, hung out in the gift shop for a little bit while we took turns riding Big Thunder Mountain. We didn't set up ride or switch, so we didn't all go to Big Thunder Mountain. I just rode with one daughter. Then we met up at Pecos Bill's for a little mobile order, kind of like a light dinner because we had just had a little bit of a snack at Beacon Barrel. And again, kind of treated this like a home base with the little ones while Colton rode with Story. And I will mention that this was Sailor's first time riding Big Thunder, and she liked it. I don't think it's something that she will have to do, but I think she could be a little bit coerced into riding again. She was nervous getting on, but I explained to her what the ride felt like. I explained to her that they actually lowered the height requirement to 38 inches, which told me that it was going to be good for her age. I have been asked if it's comparable to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and I would almost say it's a little bit more mild in certain ways. There's not as many drops, but it does feel a little bit rougher. So on Big Thunder Mountain, when it feels like you're cranking up for a big drop, by the time you get to the top, you're just turning. You get to the top and you turn, and you get to the top and you turn. So I was reminding Sailor of that. If you have a kid that gets nervous for that crank up and they think they're going to be plummeting down to the earth, be like, don't worry. As soon as we get to the top, we're just going to turn. And that really helped her relax. And I think she ended up having fun. We started walking out of the park around, a little after 6:30. We were back at the room by 7, which is really nice. It is nice staying near Magic Kingdom at a resort on the monorail. It was so nice and easy getting back to the resort. And I honestly can't even tell you what we did. I think we just took showers and went to bed, which would make sense because that was a very long day. I thought that we were going to get a little bit of a break in between Animal Kingdom and Magic Kingdom, which we could have done if we got to Animal Kingdom earlier. But because we had done the fireworks the night before, I was very happy to just not have an alarm, not have any lightning lanes waiting for me at Animal Kingdom. And I'm glad we did it the way that we did. So there will be a future episode for part 3. Yes, part 3. I didn't know that it was going to be this many parts, but we're going to wrap up the trip with a full day in Epcot and our departure day, which ended up kind of being a full park day on its own in Magic Kingdom with a lot of hiccups. So make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss that episode. We have a new episode every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Laid Back Magic Way podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode and it was helpful for you, it would mean the world to me if you'd write a quick review. Your reviews help more moms like you find the show, and I read every single one of them. Seriously, thank you in advance. You can find me on Instagram at Somewhere Worthwhile, and I'd love to hear from you there. DM me if you have any questions about this episode or what you'd like to see in future ones. Until then, keep planning for your next favorite memory, and I'll see you next time.